When you're a quarterback, all eyes are on you. You're the only player on the team who touches the ball on every single play. If your team loses, you catch all of the blame, but if your team wins, you'll receive all of the credit. Nowadays in the NFL, you cannot survive with a mediocre quarterback. That's why teams give up huge money and draft capital in attempts to find their quarterback of the future. With that said, your time to prove yourself as an NFL quarterback can be very short. Just look at the 2021 quarterback class. 5 signal callers were selected in the first round. Only one of them still remains on the team that drafted them. The other 4 were traded or released before the end of their rookie contracts. Here are 4 quarterbacks that I believe are fighting for their jobs this upcoming season. Starting off, I have Deshaun Watson. No team has invested more into their starting quarterback than the Browns have invested into Deshaun Watson. And now the entire fate of this franchise is dependent on his performance. 2 off seasons ago, the Browns traded a boatload of draft capital, including 3 first-round picks to the Texans in exchange for Deshaun Watson. They also signed him to a $230 million contract, which was fully guaranteed. That was and still is the most amount of guaranteed money ever given to a player in NFL history. And the Browns made this commitment to Watson despite him missing the entire 2021 season and facing a suspension heading into 2022. And ever since Deshaun Watson made his return to football after 700 days of absence, he has only shown flashes of returning to his old form. Last year, I would say there were 2 moments where Deshaun Watson looked like he was back. Week 3 versus Tennessee, when he absolutely torched them and completed 81% of his passes for 289 yards and 2 touchdowns. And the other time was the second half of the game against the Ravens, where he completed every one of his 14 pass attempts for 134 yards and a touchdown in the second half. He also had an incredible run during the game-winning drive that set up the Browns' game-winning field goal. But just days following his heroic performance, it was announced that Deshaun Watson would need season-ending surgery to his shoulder. But now we're heading into Deshaun Watson's 3rd season with the Browns. The first season was excusable because of how rusty he was and the suspension. Last year is somewhat excusable because he was battling injuries during the entire season. But this year, there's no more excuses. This is a Browns team that made the playoffs last season with a 38-year-old Joe Flacco who they yanked off the couch in the middle of the season. They also had 28% of their salary cap on injured reserve and started 5 different quarterbacks. They still somehow won 11 games. The Browns boast the NFL's best defense, a top 10 offensive line, a strong running game that is now getting Nick Chubb back, a solid receiving core with Amari Cooper, David Njoku, Elijah Moore, and now Jerry Jeudy, who they traded for in the offseason, and they're led by a 2-time Coach of the Year in Kevin Stefanski. So there's absolutely no excuses for Deshaun Watson heading into this season. If this is the Deshaun Watson who we saw back in 2020, the Browns would be favorites to win the Super Bowl. However, this is 2024, and all we've seen from Watson is flashes of what he used to be. This is the year where he needs to step it up. If he struggles again, I honestly think that the Browns might bench Deshaun Watson in favor of Jameis Winston. Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry both know that this team has a championship level roster, and they also know that time's ticking before players leave in free agency. So they're going to start the best quarterback on the team, whether that's Deshaun Watson or not. Next up, I have Daniel Jones. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised Daniel Jones even still has his job right now. This is a guy who hasn't thrown for 4,000 yards once in his career, and he hasn't had a season with 20 passing touchdowns since his rookie year. But I kind of understand why the Giants are giving him another year. After having a pretty rocky first 3 seasons in the league, everything changed for Daniel Jones in 2022. During the offseason, the Giants hired Brian Daboll as their new head coach, and during his time as the Bills offensive coordinator, Daboll played a huge role in the development of Josh Allen. Brian Daboll's success in developing Josh Allen led him to being a top head coaching candidate heading into 2022, and the Giants hired him with hopes that he could develop Daniel Jones the same way he did with Allen. And right off the bat, it looked like a great pairing. Daniel Jones had the best season of his career and led the Giants to a playoff victory against the Minnesota Vikings. This led to the Giants giving Daniel Jones a 4-year extension worth up to $160 million. However, things came crashing and burning into the ground for the Giants at the beginning of 2023. In In 6 games as the starter, Daniel Jones had a 1-5 record. He threw only 2 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. His 70.5 passer rating would have been rock bottom amongst all NFL starting quarterbacks had he played the entire season, and he tore his ACL against the Raiders, which ended the year for him. This was the exact opposite of what the Giants wanted to see out of their new franchise quarterback, who they paid $160 million in the offseason. And I was a little bit surprised that the Giants passed on taking a quarterback with the 6th overall pick. However, I understand why, given that we've only seen Daniel Jones for 6 games since they gave him that extension. However, those 6 games were absolutely atrocious, and I honestly think there's a chance that if Daniel Jones doesn't perform once again, he'll get replaced quickly by Drew Lock, and the Giants will look to draft their quarterback of the future next offseason. My 3rd quarterback on the list is Derek Carr. The Saints were very overhyped heading into last season. They looked like they were a lock to win the NFC South. However, they fell far short of their preseason expectations. And so did their new franchise quarterback. Going into the 2023 offseason, the Saints were expected to pursue a veteran quarterback. And immediately, when the Raiders released Derek Carr, the Saints signed him to a 4-year deal worth up to $150 million, making him the 10th highest paid quarterback in the league at that time. Throughout his time with the Raiders, Carr put up some solid numbers, but he didn't have much success as he went 63-79 as the starter, and he didn't win a playoff game during his 9 seasons in silver and black. But in an offense with weapons like Chris Olave, Alvin Kamara, and a defense that's better than any defense he ever played with on the Raiders, it was supposed to be Carr's time to shine in New Orleans. But as we know, that simply has not been the case. And if you look at per 17 game averages, Andy Dalton's 2022 season with the Saints was only slightly worse. And to me, it looks like the Saints paid $150 million for a slightly better version of Andy Dalton. The Saints finished the year with a 9-8 record and missed the playoffs for the 3rd consecutive season. While the Saints weren't terrible last season, they didn't make the strides that many thought they would in 2023, and if the offense is pedestrian yet again, I think the Saints will take a serious look at bringing in a younger quarterback of the future in the offseason. They already sent a little bit of a sign of that when they drafted Spencer Rattler in the 5th round. However, I doubt that he will ever make a serious impact for them. The 4th quarterback on this list is Will Levis. The Tennessee Titans are completely rebuilding their team. They're completely rebranding their identity. And Will Levis needs to show them something this season, or else I think there's a good chance that they explore other options in the offseason. They surrounded him with a number of weapons. They went out and signed receivers like Calvin Ridley and Tyler Boyd to add alongside DeAndre Hopkins. They also signed Tony Pollard to pair with Tyjae Spears in the backfield. And focusing on the offensive side of the ball was a must for the Titans this offseason. Last year, they ranked 27th in total points scored, and in today's NFL, with all of these high-powered offenses, you need to be able to put points on the board. And a big part of their offensive struggles was Will Levis. The Titans ranked 29th in passing yards and passing touchdowns last season. Levis had 2 moments last season where he looked like he could be a franchise quarterback. His first start against the Falcons, where he absolutely lit them on fire and threw 4 touchdowns, and the second half against the Dolphins, where he led an incredible 4th quarter comeback. Other than that, he was extremely inconsistent. Levis completed 58% of his passes and threw 8 touchdowns to 4 interceptions and posted a passer rating of 84.2. Now, I know a lot of you probably have Will Levis as a breakout candidate this year, and I don't deny that he could have an incredible season. I even have the Titans as one of my most improved teams heading into 2024. But because the Titans have improved so much, there's going to be a lot of pressure on Will Levis to perform quickly. And unlike the rest of the second-year starting quarterbacks, he's the only one who wasn't a first-round pick, making him easily expendable if he struggles again this season despite the offensive weapons that they've put around him. Hey everyone, thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, as it will go a long way in helping me create the best quality NFL content for all of you. And in the comments, let me know what quarterbacks you think are fighting for their jobs this upcoming season. And once again, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.